Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erika Cruz. Hello, and welcome back to Chingona Revolution podcast. We are talking about failure today, and failure is the one thing that almost everyone I work with avoids. Actually, every single person that I've worked with, right? When we dig deep as to why they haven't started taking action on the thing that they want to do, or why they haven't had that difficult conversation, or why they haven't done pretty much anything that's on that vision board, not that they haven't done everything, but like when they have not taken action, usually the root of that is fear of failure. They don't want to fail, so they just kind of avoid it. So I noticed that this was happening with my clients, and I was actually in Mexico. I was in my mom's village with my cousin Brenda, and we were in the kitchen journaling, and I was thinking about my clients. I try not to do this anymore when I'm on vacation, but I'm being honest, this is what was happening. And I was really thinking, I had just started with a new group of Courage Driven Latina of my group program. And I was like, okay, how can I get them to take action faster? Because what's happening is they're so afraid of failing that they don't even try. And then we get, halfway through the program and they're like, oh, I need to hurry up and execute my Courage project. And it's not like any progress hasn't been made. They have been making a lot of progress. But I was really thinking, how can I help them take action faster? And if I do know that the reason they are not taking action is because they are afraid of failure, what if I made it the goal to fail? And that is how the failure challenge was born. So instead of avoiding failure, you are making it your goal to fail. And you're probably like, okay, what kind of challenge is that, Erika? Like, isn't the goal to succeed? Well, yeah, the goal is to succeed, but the way that you succeed is through not fearing failure. It's through embracing failure, through welcoming failure, because the truth is that we do not learn from our wins, right? We learn from failure. And failure is nothing more than something that's telling us what didn't work, right? So when you fail, that's clarity, that is information, that's data for you. And so in other words, failure is nothing more than redirection. I'm sure you've heard that before. I want you to imagine your life if everything worked out exactly as you wanted, or if you never failed at anything. What kind of person would you be? You'd probably lack character. You'd probably be just like a completely different person, and you wouldn't know half of the things that you know today. So the fear of failure is usually a lot worse than failure itself. And the reason that we feel failure is because we don't want to be looked at as somebody who's incapable or somebody who's inadequate. If you remember the last podcast episode on self-doubt, where we fear being inadequate, right? Like, this is also why we avoid taking action that can lead to failure, because we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to find evidence of that self-doubt, and we don't want other people to have evidence of that self-doubt either. So when I was creating this challenge around failure, I was really thinking, okay, when they participate, and if the goal is to fail, inevitably, they are going to have more wins as well. Because successful people make it a goal to fail. They don't look at failure as like, oh, that means I'm not worthy or anything like that. They look at failure as like, okay, cool, that didn't work. Let me go try something else. Because you see, what happens is we end up getting so paralyzed and we don't take any action. And when we don't take action, we go nowhere. So taking action that leads to failure is still moving forward, because you are learning what doesn't work. So you could try something different next time. But if you're sitting there just like, oh, I don't want to take any action because what if I fail? You're going to stay in the same place forever. So I introduced this to the last round of Courage Driven Latina. And the way that this worked was they submitted a failure into Slack, and Slack is what we use for, like, that's where they get coaching. That's where the community is. That's where we communicate. So anytime that they had a possible failure, they would submit it. And then the person who submitted the most amount of fails won the challenge. And then they won a 90-minute one-on-one intensive with me. So the challenge is now over, but so many amazing things came from it. And that's what I want to share with you today. So the way that we qualified if something could be submitted for the failure challenge was if there was a risk of failure. In other words, if they took an action and there was a risk that they could fail or succeed, then that was a submission for the failure challenge. So the whole point was taking action, taking the risk. And if they failed, guess what? They got another submission for the challenge, right? So it was like the biggest failure won. And if they made an attempt to take that action and they succeeded, that was also a submission. But how cool. Like, you end up winning, right? Because you're inevitably taking more action. And if you're taking more action, you're going to have more success. So as you can imagine, the results of this challenge were pretty incredible. Of all of the different Slack channels that we have, none of them were as busy as the failure challenge. Every day we had multiple submissions for this challenge. And here are just some of the highlights that, and here are some of the highlights that came from it. So people created and set boundaries at work for the first time. People started to post imperfectly on social media and consistently. People started to land clients. People applied for jobs instead of just browsing and thinking about them. People made offers online for those people who have businesses or who are coaches. They made offers through social media and in person. Somebody dyed their own hair. Somebody developed a wellness training for their work because they noticed that there was burnout. How cool. Like, look at all of this action. Someone else signed up for a marathon for their first marathon ever. Somebody went to a heels class for the first time. He posted on LinkedIn for the first time. So many people set boundaries with their family for the first time. There was so many amazing highlights that came from this failure challenge. And I'm just going to read off a few of the submissions so that you can hear kind of what people posted and what people were doing. So somebody said, I'm at a conference where I don't know anyone and I've put myself out there and made more than 5 connections with other badass women. As an introvert, I was scared, but I put myself out there and it went well. My failure last week was not working out at all. I usually put pressure on myself to work out no matter what, but I decided to let go and rest because that is what I felt I needed to do. This week, I plan to work out and do Pilates, but only if I feel like it. I've been learning to not put as much pressure on myself so that I don't cause myself so much stress. Somebody else said, I uploaded a reel and thought I had included music, but I didn't. I thought of deleting it and reposting it, but I decided to leave it instead. For my second reel, I was able to add music and do a better job of it. Honestly, if I sat here and read the over 80 submissions for this challenge, we would be here all day for the entire podcast episode. But I want to just read off how it was. But I want to read off how the challenge helped people. So I asked, like, okay, how was this beneficial for you? And somebody said, I loved it. I felt like it fueled me and motivated me to take action with the things that bring me fear. I saw that this challenge did not leave me with the what if mentality. It's allowing me to embrace failure in that at the end of the day, it's a learning experience. I'll be a viejita that will say I did all the things I wanted, even when it didn't always succeed. How incredible is that? Like, how amazing is that? And somebody else said, I just realized this morning that it helped me release the idea of perfection and to show up on social media in a new way. It was amazing. So, I mean, again, I could sit here and go on and on reading about the submissions, but I think the beauty of this challenge is there's a few different things, right? It makes you reframe that you're thinking about failure is one. 2, the fact that you're doing it in community and it's almost gamified where, okay, the person who submits the most is going to get something. They're going to get this 90-minute intensive with me. But then 3rd, you have people cheering you on, right? Like, I only read off just some of the highlights, but this channel had so much engagement. I mean, I'm like browsing through it right now and 8 replies for one of them, 20 likes on another one, 5 replies. And like, this wasn't me going into reply. This was other people inside of Courage Driven Latina. So if you have been having a really hard time with taking action because you're afraid that you might fail, I want you to borrow this challenge from me and think about, okay, if I was creating my own failure challenge, how would I show up for this? Like, and the way that you're going to think about things is anytime there's an action you're afraid to take, ask yourself, ooh, is there a risk of failure? And if so, I should do it. Because if I fail, then I know that this is a learning experience. I know that this is going to help me grow. I know that this is going to get me ahead, because remember, we learn more from failure than we do from success. So why are we avoiding it so much? Where have we began to believe that failure was such a bad thing? And if you listen to my podcast episode on human design, I'm not sure if I talk specifically about this, but there's such a thing in human design as profiles. And I am a 1-3 profile. And the 1 is the investigator, somebody who really likes learning about things, which makes sense. Like, that's kind of what I do here on the podcast. I learn about a topic and then I come and share it with you all. But then the 3 is the person who's all about trial and error. So they are supposed to come into the world to show people that it's okay to fail. And I feel like I do that all the time. I fail more than I succeed. And I share that with you all here so much. And that's probably why you enjoy my content. So this is evidence that failure is not a bad thing. So if you find yourself avoiding action because you're afraid of failure, listen to this podcast episode, bookmark it, share this with a friend, maybe team up with a friend and try to hold each other accountable. And if you want to join the next failure challenge, it is happening the first month of the next Courage Driven Latina. So whenever we open the program again, which, as a reminder, Courage Driven Latina is now going to be a 12-month program, meaning we will have an opportunity for more than one failure challenge. I think we're probably going to do 3 failure challenges a year. And I'm so excited because so many amazing things come out of the challenge. I don't think I've ever seen Courage Driven Latina take so much action in such a short period of time. Like, okay, I announced the challenge on the 2nd of May, and then we ended it in June, right? So from the 2nd until the 4th, when I posted all the rules, because I recorded a video for them to share and to give them all the rules, we already had 18 submissions. I don't think we've ever had that much engagement in general in Slack within such a short period of time. But to have that many submissions is incredible. And people are still posting in it, right? The challenge is over, but people love the failure challenge so much that they're still posting in it. So whether you do this on your own or join us inside of Courage Driven Latina, I would love to support you through your failures that inevitably are wins. They're all wins in the end. So, like, the only real failure is not trying. That is the only real failure. Okay, so I have this book that is called The 100 Simple Secrets of Successful People. It's an older book. I got this from one of the tech companies that I used to work at. I borrowed it and then we moved to another office and then I never returned it. So yes, I stole the book. But page 124 is all about failure. And it says failure is not trying. So I'm just going to read a quick part of this and then a study that came with it. So the fear of failure is powerful. Nobody wants to reveal to others or to themselves that they were not capable of doing something they tried to do. This fear can be used as a source of motivation to keep you working hard towards your goals. Yet this same fear offers a convenient escape clause. You can never fail if you don't bother to try. Not trying is, of course, the ultimate failure, for it means you can never make progress towards your goals. And then the study, it's from 1999, so obviously it's outdated, but I think it still holds some truth. It says, when asked to describe significant regrets in their lives, more than 8 out of 10 people focused on the actions they did not take rather than the actions they did. In other words, they focused on things they failed to do rather than things they failed at doing. Failure in the moment can feel crappy, but in the end, you're going to regret what you did not do what you failed to try at, not what you failed at. I feel like even though this book is a little old, it's just such a great piece of wisdom. And if you remember when I was reading off like how it was that the challenge helped some of the Courage Driven Latina, somebody said, I saw that this challenge did not leave me with the what if mentality. I'll be a viejita that will say I did all the things I wanted, even when it didn't always succeed. All right, y'all. I hope you join us for the next failure challenge inside of Courage Driven Latina. Do not forget that in just a couple of days, we have the free masterclass from Doubtful to Chingona happening. It's happening on July 6th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We will send out the recording. So if you cannot make it live, check your email because we will send it after the recording is ready. We'll send it off to your email. So make sure that you register. And at the masterclass, you will have early access to Courage Driven Latina. So after the masterclass, that is the time when you will be able to enroll in this program. If you've been wanting to enroll in this program, now is the best time to join Courage Driven Latina. As it is now a 12-month program. And as I mentioned, we're going to do a few of these failure challenges. I cannot wait to see the action that you take and what results come from it. I will see you at the masterclass. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theerikacruz.com. That's Erika with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erika Cruz. That's Erika with a K because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.